Good afternoon and welcome. I am Emedion James coming to you live from Uyo. This is Spotlight Africa brought to you by Spectrum Television. Today on Spotlight Africa, Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko dismisses AFCON tensions with Morocco. Israel agrees to limited reopening of Rafah crossing between Egypt and Gaza. Sudan's vital gold industry hit by ongoing conflict, collapsing trade ties. Sudanese volunteers plant trees to make Khartoum greener and reconstruction. Plus, Egypt to restrict children's social media use. We'll bring you details of these stories and more in just a moment. This and other stories coming up on Spotlight Africa today. Please stay tuned. Many thanks for staying tuned. We begin Spotlight Africa from Senegal, where Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko on Monday dismissed post-African Cup of Nations tensions between his country and Morocco as excesses only caused by sporting emotions. Sonko spoke alongside his Moroccan counterpart Aziz Akinnacho during the 15th Morocco-Senegal Joint Commission for Cooperation held from January 26 to 28 in Rabat. Hostility rose between football fans on both sides after Senegal's 1-0 win over Morocco, the tournament host nation. In the AFCON final on January 18, Sonko and Akanacho met for their country's first joint commission in 12 years. While Sonko said the date for the commission was already set in December, the three-day event provides both countries with a timely opportunity to ease tensions. The Moroccan Prime Minister described this year's AFCON as a landmark moment in the history of the continental competition. Morocco and Senegal enjoyed a strong bilateral partnership in various fields. Both countries helped to strengthen their relations during the Rabat summit. In a related development, Israel says it has agreed to a limited reopening of the Rafah border crossing between Gaza Strip and Egypt as part of Donald Trump's peace plan. The crossing will be open for pedestrian passage only and subject to a full Israeli inspection mechanism. Now, this is according to a statement from the Israeli Prime Minister's office on Sunday night. The Rafah crossing is a key entry point for humanitarian aid in Gaza. It has mostly closed since May 2024. Both humanitarian organizations and the United Nations have long asked for its reopening, but Israeli authorities have resisted the move even since the ceasefire in Gaza came into effect on October 10th. They said the crossing's reopening was conditioned upon the return of all living and deceased hostages. On Monday, Israel announced it had retrieved the remains of the last hostage in Gaza, a police officer named Ran Vili. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the recovery of Ran's body as an incredible achievement for Israel and its soldiers. The United Nations welcomed the recovery of the last Israeli captive and called for the full implementation of the Gaza ceasefire plan. Meanwhile, Sudan's gold industry, a key source of foreign currency, is rallying under ongoing conflict. infrastructure damage, and collapsing trade ties. The price of gold is hitting record highs, but gold traders in Sudan are missing out. The country is one of Africa's leading gold producers and exporters, but conflict, infrastructure damage, and collapsing trade ties have seen its vital gold industry suffering severe setbacks. Gold mining in Sudan remains largely traditional since the outbreak of the conflict. Insecurity has caused a sharp decline in output, and a portion of the country's gold has been smuggled out through illegal channels. Gold processing and trade have always been disrupted. Shortages of raw materials have led some refineries to cut back or shut down, and small workshops and retail traders are struggling to stay afloat. Meanwhile, a visible drop in gold trade volume has narrowed profit margins for traders. Still in Sudan, as reconstruction is underway in Sudan's capital, a grassroots initiative is using the opportunity to turn Khartoum into a greener city. Volunteers are working to plant 1,000 trees around Khartoum in the hopes of restoring its pre-war glory. The army recaptured Khartoum from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces in March 2025. Sudan's military-led government announced its gradual return to the capital in January after operating from the Red Sea city of Port Sudan, some 700 kilometers away for nearly 3 years. The Green Khartoum initiative has especially inspired the young people who hope to help turn their damaged city into a welcoming environment. More than a third of Khartoum's 9 million residents fled when the RSF seized power in 2023. Over a million have returned since the army retook the city. Meanwhile, war continues to rage in Sudan's Kordofan region. In another development, Egypt's parliament is looking into ways to regulate children's use of social media platforms to combat what lawmakers called digital chaos, following some Western countries that are considering banning young teenagers from social media. The House of Representatives said in a statement late Sunday that it will work on legislation to regulate children's use of social media and put an end to the digital chaos their children are facing and which negatively impact their future. Legislators will consult with the government and expert bodies to draft a law to protect Egyptian children from any risk that threatens its thought and behavior, the statement said. The statement came after President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on Saturday urged his government and lawmakers to consider adopting legislation restricting children's use of social media until they reach an age when they can handle it properly. The president televised comments urged his government to look at other countries including Australia and the United Kingdom that are working on legislation to restrict or ban children from social media. About 50% of children under 18 in Egypt use social media platforms where they are likely exposed to harmful content, cyberbullying and abuse, according to a 2024 report by the National Center for Social and Criminology Research, a government-linked think tank. Away from that, Libya signed a 25-year-old deal with France, Total Energies, and US-based ConocoPhillips, involving more than $20 billion of foreign investment. Prime Minister Abdul Hamid said during the Libya Energy and Economic Summit in Tripoli. The agreement was signed through Waha Oil Company, a subsidiary of Libya's state-run National Oil Corporation. The new agreement should boost oil production capacity by up to 850,000 barrels per day, according to the Prime Minister. It is also expected to generate over $376 billion of net revenues. The agreement reflects the strengthening of Libya's relations with its largest and most influential international partners in the global energy sector. The Libyan Prime Minister also revealed that the country's oil output reached its highest level in 12 years in 2025, climbing to 1.37 million barrels per day. The government also signed a memorandum of understanding with U.S. oil giant Chevron and a cooperation agreement with Egypt's oil ministry. Last year also saw Libya launch its first oil and natural gas exploration licensing round in 17 years. Results from this exploration should be announced in February, according to Beiba. As tensions between Cuba and the United States rise and Cubans brace for further economic difficulties, priests and priestesses of the African-Cuban root religion known as Santeria held several ceremonies on Sundays and offered gifts to deities who asked for peace. Several of the leading figures in Santeria families on the island prayed to their deities for their spiritual healing of the Cuban people, an end to the violence and conflict that, according to their predictions from late December, would happen this year. They repeatedly chanted in ancient Yoruba songs brought to the island by enslaved Africans and passed down orally. African and Spanish tradition syncretized, giving rise to Cuban's strong Afro-Cuban identity. On January 2nd, Cuban Babalolas predicted the possibility of war and violence affecting Cuba. A day later, on January 3rd, the United States carried out an operation in Caracas and arrested then-President Nicolas Maduro. 32 Cuban soldiers from Maduro's personal security detail died in the operation. Venezuela is one of Cuba's main political Venezuela is one of Cuba's main political, ideological, and commercial allies, and the attack shocked the island's population. Cuba is currently experiencing a radical tightening of U.S. sanctions, strangling its economy to pressure for a change in its political system, and President Donald Trump has directly threatened the island. A group of officers in Nigeria are set to face military courts after being accused of plotting to overthrow the government of President Bola Tinubu last year. An armed forces statement has said 16 officers were arrested last October after what were described as an act of indiscipline and breaches of service regulations. At the time, the military dismissed rumors of an attempted coup, but following an investigation, the authorities have acknowledged that some of the 16 will go before a military judicial panel. Nigeria has a complex history of military involvement in politics, with multiple coups between 1996 and 1993, which has made allegations of coup plotting highly sensitive. It is not clear how many of the 16 will go on trial, but the military authorities said the process will ensure accountability and uphold the principle of fairness and due process. A statement added that trying to unseat the elected president was inconsistent with the ethics, values, and professional standards of the military. In recent years, concerns over instability, insecurity, and public frustration have occasionally prompted rumors about dissent within the ranks, rumors that the military has repeatedly dismissed. After the break, Kenyan cult leader faces charges over 52 further deaths. Stay tuned for details of this and more after this time out. Many thanks for staying tuned. The leader of a Kenyan cult accused of encouraging his followers to starve themselves to death will be charged over a further 52 deaths at another village, prosecutors say. Self-proclaimed pastor Paul Mackenzie was arrested in 2023 after 429 bodies, including children, were dug up from mass graves in a remote Shakahola forest. He has been in custody since his arrest and has been accused of luring the latest victims to their death by writing notes from his prison cells. Mackenzie has pleaded not guilty to multiple counts of manslaughter. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecution said in a statement on X on Monday that it had received the go-ahead to formally charge Good News International Church leader Paul Ntenge Mackenzie and his co-accused over the death of 52 people at the Binzaro homestead in Kilifi County. Mackenzie was reasonably suspected to have masterminded the incident and had used radical teachings and coordinated structures to lure victims to the remote village, the prosecutors added. Elsewhere, the United Nations say it is gravely concerned about a senior military leader in South Sudan urged his troops to spare no one, including children, the elderly, and civilians, when they were deployed to opposition-held areas of the country. South Sudan Deputy Army Chief General Johnson Olini met the call as he addressed his Aweleke militia as he prepared to be sent to part of Joli State. Forces aligned to South Sudan's suspended Vice President Rak Machar have captured several areas in recent weeks. He is currently on trial on charges of murder, treason, and crimes against humanity, which he denies. The military has ordered all civilians and personnel from the UN mission and all other aid agencies to evacuate these counties in Jole State ahead of an imminent operation against opposition forces. In Uganda, Uganda's military chief, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, has denied claims that soldiers assaulted Barbara Kyagulanyi, the wife of opposition leader Bobi Wine, during a raid at their home. Wine, who is in hiding, alerted on Saturday that his wife was held at gunpoint by military officers who assaulted her, taking away documents and electronic items. He said the house continued to be surrounded by the military. Speaking from hospital, Barbara Kyagulanyi said the officers had demanded to know wife's whereabouts and had assaulted her when she refused. It comes after the recent landslide victory of long-serving leader, the Kainerugaba's father, President Yoweri Museveni. Wine rejected the result, citing fraud. Lastly on Spotlight Africa, prominent Kenyan opposition figure Rigathi Gachagua has alleged there was an attempt on his life during a Sunday's church service. Gachagua, who was sacked as deputy president in impeachment trial in 2024, claimed in an interview with newsmen that rogue police officers shot at everyone and tear gassed the church in Othaya in the central county of Nyeri. He had previously accused his former allied President William Ruto of ordering the attack but did not provide any evidence. Ruto has not commented, but government spokesperson Isaac Mbura accused Gachagua of staging the attack. The police said an investigation had been launched, adding that no injuries had been reported. This has been Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum Television. To ensure to follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel all over which you can find on your website, spectrumtvlive.ng. I am Emediong James. Do enjoy the rest of your day and thank you for watching.